This chapter explores the important connections between temperament, emotion regulation, and social development in early childhood. This presentation, based on the work of Susan D. Calkins and Jennifer S. Mackler, will dive into how infants' interactions with their caregivers influence their emotional and social growth. As you can see in the image, the focus is on those early moments that lay the foundation for a child's future development. I'm excited to take you through these key concepts and their impact on child development. Today, we'll explore social competence and peer relationships through the lens of temperament theory. We'll start by looking at what temperament is and how it develops, followed by how we measure it, including psychobiological assessments. Then we'll define emotion regulation, discuss its development, and examine how we measure it. Afterward, we'll delve into the connection between temperament and emotion regulation, and how these factors impact child functioning and social competence. Finally, we'll wrap up with a summary and look at directions for future research in this field. Social competence refers to a child's ability to form and maintain positive relationships with others. This includes key social skills, developing friendships, and being liked by peers. These abilities are crucial as they help children navigate social situations and build meaningful connections. On the other hand, poor social competence can lead to significant difficulties. Children who are rejected by their peers or who withdraw from social groups often face negative outcomes. These can include feelings of isolation, lower self-esteem, and even challenges in their emotional and academic development. The image here shows a typical classroom setting where children are interacting with each other. This visual helps us understand that social competence plays out in everyday environments, influencing how children connect, communicate, and support one another during this important stage of growth. Temperament refers to the inherent traits that shape how individuals respond emotionally, attentively, and physically across different situations. These characteristics have a biological or genetic foundation, meaning they are present from an early age. Early research by Thomas and Chess identified three main temperament types: easy, difficult, and slow to warm up. They also introduced the important idea of goodness of fit, which highlights how well a child's temperament matches their environment, affecting their development positively or negatively. Building on this, Rothbart proposed that temperament can be understood through two broad dimensions: reactivity, which relates to how a person initially responds emotionally, and self-regulation, which involves controlling attention and motor responses to manage those reactions. Another key perspective comes from Kagan, who described inhibited children, who tend to withdraw from new situations, and uninhibited children, who approach novelty more readily. These profiles demonstrate distinct biobehavioral patterns of temperament. Together, these theories show that temperament is a biologically based foundation observed even in infancy, shaping how individuals interact with the world and develop socially and emotionally over time. The image here of the elegant swan can remind us of the natural, graceful unfolding of these traits within each person. Let's explore how temperament develops over time. It actually begins before birth, with fetal activity levels around 36 weeks serving as early indicators of temperament traits we'll see later in infancy. Moving into infancy, around 2 to 3 months, babies start to engage in self-soothing behaviors, which is their first way of managing emotions. Following this, they begin to show more purposeful actions like reaching and grasping, as well as responses such as distress and avoidance. As children grow, their temperament becomes shaped significantly by their experiences, especially through warm caregiving and emotion coaching. These interactions, along with ongoing parent-child relationships, influence how temperament is expressed and adjusted throughout childhood and into adolescence. The image here beautifully captures the early stage of this developmental journey, emphasizing how these processes unfold from infancy onward. On this slide, we look at the main ways temperament is measured in children. First, parent reports are a key method. Caregivers complete questionnaires rating their infants' behaviors over recent periods, giving us a look at typical patterns in everyday settings. Then there's laboratory assessment, where tools like the LabTab use standardized tasks to observe temperament dimensions in controlled environments. This helps us see specific reactions more clearly. To get the fullest picture, a multi-method approach combines these parent reports with lab observations, improving validation and capturing a wider range of behaviors. Lastly, Many studies emphasize emotional reactivity, focusing on how quickly distress begins, how intense it is, and how long it lasts. These aspects are crucial indicators of temperament and help us understand individual differences better. Here, we explore three important psychobiological methods used to assess temperament. First, heart rate variability, which includes measures like vagal tone and respiratory sinus arrhythmia, helps us understand emotional reactivity and regulation by reflecting the activity of the parasympathetic nervous system and how well someone can cope with stress. Next is brain electrical activity, measured through EEG, focusing on differences in hemispheric activation. This technique links frontal brain asymmetry to temperament traits, such as behavioral inhibition and emotional reactivity. Finally, adrenocortical activity involves measuring cortisol levels in plasma or saliva. Cortisol serves as an indicator of physiological stress responses and emotional reactivity, particularly useful when studying infants. The image to the left shows a healthcare professional performing such an assessment on a young child, giving a real-world example of how these biological measures are collected to better understand temperament. Here, we define emotion regulation as the behaviors, skills, and strategies we use to manage and influence our emotional experiences and how we express them. It involves two important dimensions. The first is reactivity, which is present from birth and shaped by genetic and biological factors. This is our immediate, often automatic emotional response. The second dimension is control, which refers to the ways we, either consciously or unconsciously, manage and adjust those initial reactions. Emotion regulation is not static. It's a dynamic process that develops over time, moving from these innate, reactive responses toward more deliberate and controlled management of our emotions. Here, we see how emotion regulation develops from infancy through adolescence. Starting with the infant to toddler shift, babies initially rely heavily on their caregivers to help manage their emotions. Over time, they begin to use self-initiated strategies like self-comforting, seeking help, or distracting themselves. Moving into the preschool to school age period, language development and family influence play a crucial role. Children at this stage develop more complex and flexible ways to regulate their emotions, thanks to improved communication skills and supportive family environments. Finally, during adolescence and brain development, maturation of brain regions, along with peer influences, supports more active and planned forms of regulation. Even though adolescents face increased emotional challenges, they become better equipped to manage their feelings intentionally. The image here highlights this journey, showing how regulation shifts from close caregiver support to navigating wider social interactions with peers. On this slide, we delve into how emotion regulation is measured, particularly in children and adolescents, through three main methods. First, laboratory observation involves watching how children manage their emotions during specific tasks designed to evoke emotional responses. We look for strategies such as self-comforting, seeking help, or distracting themselves, which reveal how they cope in real time. Second, parent reports use tools like the emotion regulation checklist, where parents provide insights on how their child handles negative emotions at home. This perspective is valuable but works best alongside direct observations for a fuller picture. Lastly, self-report measures like the Adolescent Self-Regulatory Inventory allow older children and teens to describe their own abilities to regulate their emotions, capturing multiple dimensions from their standpoint. Combining these three approaches gives us a well-rounded understanding of emotion regulation across different situations and developmental stages. Here, we see how temperament interacts with the development of emotion regulation in several important ways. First, temperament can act as a direct constraint, meaning it may limit a child's ability to develop the specific regulatory behaviors needed to manage emotions like frustration or distress effectively. Next, the environment, in particular, caregiving behavior, plays a significant moderating role. Sensitive and supportive parenting can help offset some of the challenges posed by a difficult temperament, guiding children toward healthier regulation skills despite their individual differences. Finally, mediating processes like attention control and physiological regulation are key mechanisms that connect temperament to emerging emotion regulation abilities. These processes help explain how early temperament influences the way children learn to focus, control their responses, and manage their emotions over time. The image here shows a child deeply engaged in a classroom activity, highlighting the focus and control essential to emotion regulation, while the icons symbolize the brain's regulatory functions, the supportive home environment, and the mediation of physiological and attentional control. Together, these elements underscore the complex but critical pathways from temperament to effective emotional management. Here, we see how emotion regulation plays a crucial role in both social and academic aspects of a child's life. On the social front, children who struggle to manage their emotions often exhibit more aggressive behaviors and experience difficulties with peer relationships, sometimes even facing rejection. In contrast, those who develop strong regulation skills tend to build more positive and supportive friendships. Turning to school outcomes, children with good emotion regulation are better equipped to handle the demands of the classroom. They adapt more easily to routines and expectations, which leads to improved readiness and ultimately higher academic achievement. The image here beautifully captures children engaged in a collaborative activity, highlighting how emotional skills influence both everyday interactions and learning experiences. Overall, mastering emotion regulation lays the foundation for healthier social connections and greater success in school. To wrap up, this slide highlights the core idea that temperament, emotion regulation, and social competence are deeply connected throughout a person's development. Emotion regulation isn't just one fixed skill. It's a dynamic process that happens on many levels: biological, emotional, cognitive, and social. It develops through important relationships, especially those with caregivers and peers. Looking ahead, future research should focus more on how a child's temperament influences who they choose as friends, and how siblings and peers contribute to shaping their ability to regulate emotions. It's also crucial to study the impact of negative peer groups, which can disrupt healthy emotional growth. Ultimately, the key question remains: how exactly are emotion regulation and social competence linked? To answer this, we need to keep exploring these complex, ever-changing, and interactive processes that unfold in real relationships over time.